Hello, David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today I want to talk to you about cold wax. I told you before, probably last year, I told you how we're going to use cold wax to protect our watercolors instead of putting in front of glass or putting glass in front of the watercolor and matting it, and we're just going to put cold wax on there. Some people use a spray, a varnish, which is fine, but that yellows in time. Where this Dorland Cold Wax does not yellow. And so what I want to show you is the correct way. I've been telling you how to put it on there correctly, but just incorrectly in the fact that I'm using too much of the wax. I just talked to a person who uses a professional cold waxer, and she is telling me that I had shown her what I had done to some of my paintings, and it was still tacky after it dried. So what we want to do is not put so much on that it stays tacky. That's too much. And it also then shows fingerprints and stuff like that on there. And it doesn't dry to a hard rock. And so I'm going to show you today how to use the Dorland Cold Wax the correct way. So what I'm going to do is open up. And also, before you even do your waxing, make sure you sign your painting, because once it's done, it's done. It's protected. And so what we want to do is also make sure that your board is already, or your watercolor, if you did it on paper, was first mounted onto a board. This happened to be a watercolor board, and so panel, so that's fine. But if you're using the cold wax on there, I mean, you could glue it on there onto a board afterwards too. But it's a lot easier if you just do your paper, mount it to a board, and then afterwards we just use the Dorland Cold Wax to protect it. Anyways, we're going to take this, and you can put in your fingers and then rub it in, or you can take a rag. And what I had done before was I used to just use my fingers. I put rubber gloves on, and I put it on, and see how much I put on. I used to put on so much, and it was so thick. It was very thick when I put it on, and I would leave it like so I could feel it. It's like sliding around. Well, that I was told is way too much, because when you feel it afterwards, it dries, but then it has a little bit of a tackiness to it, and so then it doesn't give it a shot to kind of go into the paper and then bond with the paint and become very hard. And so what you're going to do is see how you put it on there. I can see little stripes on there, little white lines. Well, that's too much wax. So what you want to do is take a rag, a dish rag, or some of that blue paper towel that you see. It's like construction paper towel, and then you rub it into the painting. And don't worry about it wrecking the watercolor, because some people think that you're going to pick up some of the paint. You don't. It's really weird, but you do not disturb the watercolor. Now, don't do while the watercolor is wet. You definitely don't want to do that, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to wreck your watercolor one bit. And so I'm just going to take my rag and buff it out, kind of put it into the panel, and then so that you don't see any lines, and you can really tell it's thin enough, and you kind of almost polish it while you're putting it in. It's like you're polishing it in. And like I said, before I did this, I used to take it in really thick, and look at the difference between putting too much on and seeing the lines. And also up here now, you don't see anything. It's just like a matte surface, and it's nice and thin, and it's protected. It went into the paper. I rubbed it into the paper. And so use yourself a towel, which I didn't do before. I just take my finger and just keep on rubbing it in, and I would do that. And it was never taking out some of the stuff that was extra. And so, I mean, you can move it over here and stuff and do that, but it's good to take a towel, or pretty much a towel or paper towel, and then just rub it into the painting. And again, I wasn't doing that before, because I was just taking my fingers and taking a gob of it, putting it on there and leaving it, thinking that was the way to go. I thought that's what I had thought that's the way they do that, but I come to find out this weekend that that's not the way to do it. So I'm making this video to show the correct way. Again, you can put it on with your glove and with your fingers like this, but then rub it into the surface. Rub it in, and then take a towel, and then almost like you're rubbing it off of there, like you're polishing it and rubbing it in, and so that you don't see it's thick at all. It shouldn't be thick at all, not at all. And also take different parts of your paper, because you don't want to just put wax on wax on wax, And so here it's going to absorb a little bit of the wax into the towel, and it also lessens the amount on the paper, and it kind of swirls it around. You just need enough to protect the surface and go into the surface. You don't need it like varnish where you're spraying it on, you get a layer. This is going to give you a layer, but very thin. That's all you need. You do not need to have it so thick. And matter of fact, it's not supposed to be did that way. Too thick, it doesn't dry. It'll dry, keep being tacky, and so it's not going to give it a chance to bond in with the paint, and it'll get hard as a rock. And so basically, also I was told that you wait for it to dry, and then you can buff it after like a day. Take it over 24 hours, and then you can take your rag and you can buff it a little bit. So if you want it a little bit shinier, you can do a second coat. And the second coat meaning that you wait for that to dry and you put another coat on it. And so you just rub it in there. And she did fix the ones I had done by just, I had made them too thick. And so what they did to fix my paintings, because they said it was just way too thick. So what she had done is taken a rag, and on my paintings that were like maybe a month old, but it was still so thick, it wasn't giving it a chance to cure because it was too thick. And then you just rub it in there, rub it, and then polish it like you're buffing your car. And that's enough to protect it, because then you can put water on it and it's not going to affect it one bit. What this wax does, it bonds with the pigment itself, and it goes into the paper and bonds with the pigment, making it then a protective coating. Now, if you want it shiny, like a varnish, if you want it really shiny, which I don't highly recommend anyways, because you don't want your painting to look like really shiny on there. It gives you a little bit of a shine, but just makes it look kind of a little bit, not even darker, but not even wet, but it just gives it a nice look to it afterwards. It kind of blends things together, and it kind of highlights the large areas that you made wet in the wet. I think it really helps out that to the watercolor. So again, I'm going to put some on here, and I'm going to rub it around it, and you can almost feel where it's a little bit wet. I used to do it, and I felt it, and I wanted it to be really thick, and so I put it in there, but it would always be like tacky, and I could put my fingerprints into it, and it was just way too thick. But now I realize, and I can totally tell that it's a lot different, and it's drying. So the paintings that we did yesterday, they dried to a beautiful surface then, and it's kind of a matte. It's not too shiny, and it's not totally matte. It's just halfway in between, like a little satiny type of thing. You go in there, and it looks so real, natural. It looks like the painting, and it's just protected. All right, and so that's how you do it. See, nothing comes off. It's just, you put it down, and then, I don't have any water right here by now. I show you that. Here, I'll spatter some dirty water on it. See, I just put some dirty water on it, and see how it's bubbling? And so that's right after you put it on. You don't want to do that, but I just want to show you that it just comes right off. See that? It's wax, and so it will just protect it. And see how nice and protected it is? And so, yeah, don't do that. Don't put the water on there right away. It's not supposed to have water on it. But it just, in one night, it'll be dry, and then you can buff it the next morning, and just don't put too thick paint or too much wax on there. And you can get Dorland wax, or this is cold wax. And I know there's a couple other companies that make cold wax. Go for cold wax. This is Dorland Wax Medium. This is what oil painters use. But I also, this is for furniture. This is for Annie Sloan chalk paint. Jolene makes a chalk paint also. And they use wax to protect their furniture. So if you can protect furniture, like heavy paint on wood, then it's definitely going to work on the watercolor. And if I open both these up, they're almost identical. They just seem like they're totally identical to what it is. And it's called cold wax. And so it's a resin with wax, and so it just protects. And like I said, it doesn't yellow like varnish will, because when you varnish it, and also varnish puts a coat on top, and this goes into the paint. And so it's just a really good way of protecting your watercolors and not making them look any different from what they are. They're still going to look like watercolor, and then you don't have to put a glass on top of it. You don't have to mat it. You can just put it into a nice frame, a little bit wider frame, because unless it's like a more modern looking frame that you want to put on there, or some people just mount on those cradle boards, which have where the side is a little bit wider, and so they just have that, so there's no frame on it at all. It's just a cradle board that you put your painting on. So wax your watercolors and save yourself some time when cutting mats and putting glass on there, and it also makes them more valuable. which is really weird, but that's their perception that they are not behind glass and they're not a print. They're an original watercolor, and you can put them into a plein air frame and they'll look great. All right, so that's it. The real way of putting cold wax onto your watercolors and doing and protecting them from anything happening to them. All right, so until next time, follow me on YouTube and subscribe, please. And we'll see you on Thursday when we do paint along every Thursday on YouTube at BeckerArt. So it's youtube.com/@BeckerArt. Subscribe, please. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.